It didn't take much more than a bottle and 2 chairs to make a speakeasy. This is what Daniel Okrent said in his book, Last Call, The Rise and Fall of Prohibition. Today, join us for some stories. Get your own bottle, glass, or mug, and relax. This is Speak Easily, and I'm your host, Krista Stoffer.
And treat work as they treat their school time.
That's what you should do.
Yeah.
So you are hearing this. I just don't like how that sounds sometimes. So if you want to use a backup recording, you can.
Okay. We're pretty lenient as far as the look and feel of the thing at this point. It's all Zoom calls anymore. So, yeah, I think we're okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
No, I appreciate the offer.
Fancy. I was like, recording what? Like, can you put reverb on your voice or?
No, it's just a more, slightly more fidel. I find that like the internet recording is a little bit tinnier sometimes. Honestly, I have also discovered nobody cares when they listen later on.
As somebody who produces like audio video stuff, like I've been kind of disappointed to find out that like nobody actually cares.
That's exactly, I totally feel you. Like
I've been spending all this time making things sound as good as I can. People are like, yeah, whatever. And then it's,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you get
hey
crap.
man, I'm listening to this while I'm
Slop
taking a
for
shower
everybody.
or doing laundry. I don't care that, about the high and low. I'm not putting this on my home stereo.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that people are like multitasking more as they're listening to stuff more because we have to listen to everything?
I think that there's so much more sort of like intermittent time now because we traded one for the other, right? Like before we listened to podcasts on our commute and while we did laundry, and now we just do more laundry and cook more. And it all balances out.
It does. I was frustrated at the level, and it was something I'd never noticed before. It was like, why does the bathroom keep getting dirty? Like I just cleaned it. So either I'm forgetting what day it is, which there's a really good chance of that, or everybody's using it. Like I never realized, this is the dumbest thing I've come to, but this is quarantine time.
It's not dumb at all. I mean, think of all the think pieces that people came up with on why are we running out of toilet paper? And yes, there's a certain amount of hoarding going on, but it's actually a supply chain issue.
Yeah.
People were pooping at work. And so now they're doing it at home.
Right.
And we need that product at home. And that's actually a totally separate product.
It really is. I didn't think of it that way. Like, well, and then you get like your stress poops put in there. So you're going more.
There could be an argument for that as well.
We could probably change the subject on this like right now.
Straight off the rails. I love it. So
I mean, this is what we do. I didn't intend to talk about stress pooping today, but hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? How long has it been?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I mean,
I've seen you in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think we've seen each other in the last decade.
Yes.
But before then, it's been probably close to 20 years.
We met roughly 20 years ago.
Yeah. Because what year did you start at Otterbein?
I started at Otterbein in the fall of 2000.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I was there. And I was there as a design technology major.
You were.
But correct me if I'm wrong, you directed me in a short piece. I think the only acting I did while I was at Otterbein.
Oh my God.
I don't even remember the name of the piece. It was a scene that you needed somebody for.
Like, Tim, here's a 20. Come do a scene with me.
Right, exactly.
I
think you came up to me afterwards and said, I didn't know you were going to be so good. Weird, it wasn't a backhanded compliment. I don't think that was the intent, but I took it well. I got a couple of those while I was at Otterbein, now that I think about it.
I think that was always the interesting part, is that some of the design tech people were incredible actors.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like, I just decided to go a different route with it.
Well, and I think my sort of cost benefit analysis when I was applying to Otterbein was everybody who gets into theater, you know, when they're, for me, 12, or whether they're in high school, they get into it in acting. They're not, you know, they don't invite a 14-year-old to come and stage manage a production off the boat, but and then you sort of realize I'm either this good or I am not this good, but I'm still passionate about it.
Yeah.
I don't know where the echo is coming from.
Yeah.
I don't know where the echo is coming from.
That might be on my end here. Let me see if I can fix it. Sorry.
And then I just decided to go into design technology and stage management, and I thought I wanted to do directing, but like it is a prestigious program.
It is. So I didn't know that was your directing was your intention to go forward.
No, I just think I had dabbled in it, and I think I, like many other things, I sort of wanted to understand the whole space.
Yeah.
And so maybe it was even getting into producing, or, you know, certainly not writing was never really my thing, but
Yeah.
yeah. And then I left and got a degree in economics.
There you go. That's,
you know, just a very similar thing.
absolutely. Well, you know, if it makes you feel better, I graduated and moved to Kentucky where I taught people how to do home repair. So
What does that mean?
I have
Teaching them how to do home repair.
I worked for an organization, nonprofit, after I graduated. Like, I stayed away from theater for 8 years.
You get burned out.
Yeah, you do. I mean, and I think too, like, did you ever get to direct while you were there?
No, I don't think so. Not that I recall.
Okay.
I did a little before and a little bit after, but I don't think I did while I was there.
Because it didn't go well for me at Otterbein.
Okay.
When a certain professor, the only statement was, I didn't get it.
You presented and you directed something, presented it to them, and their statement was, I didn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I could give you 3 guesses. You could probably figure out which professor it might have been, but.
Well, what's interesting is that I can probably name all of them, but I had very few of them. I was only there for a year, basically.
Okay.
And I did, you know, design DTs, we're going to call them, design technology majors, don't interact with the acting or directing or,
No.
you know, so.
Did you like any of the other technical aspects of, I mean, because you had to do everything, right? You had to do scenic design and lighting and costumes and all of that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we took survey courses. I think all the freshman BFA students did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really like. I'm glad I understand how a shirt is constructed now, and I certainly understand electricity a lot more than I did before I went. And I know how to build things, you know, because of that. And I know how to figure out whether they need to be built well or if they need to be built to look good.
Yes.
So, and I know how to do both. So, but I also got some of that. You're not from Columbus, right?
I am from Columbus. Yep. Yeah, we're local.
Gahanna?
So is Ben.
Knew it.
Yep. Well done. Look at your memory after 2
I
decades.
knew it. Well, what's fun, you know, you do a little bit of research ahead of time, and I was like, oh, I didn't know she wasn't from here.
Oh.
I was like, I could have sworn she went to Gahanna.
Yeah.
But so I had gone to a vocational theater program in high school.
Did you do Fort Hayes?
I did Fort Hayes.
Okay.
And a huge part of that was learning load-bearing equations and how to build things and all the sort of like the individual things that you need that you may not ever use, but if you're working within this craft, you should know how much work went into something being built or how to develop a dialect or anything.
Wow.
So
did you do, how many years did you do at Fort Hayes then? All 4?
So that's a 2-year program. So
Okay.
half day, It is a high school too. My brother and sister went there, but I went to Cause, Columbus Alternative, for the rest of my time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where would you have gone to high school had you not gone through the alternative?
I grew up just south of Clintonville, so I would have gone to Whetstone.
Okay.
So.
And were you born here?
Uh-huh.
So
Riverside Methodist Hospital. I'm still, other than my time at Otterbein and a little bit of time living in the Milo Grogan neighborhood, I've lived in the same zip code for almost 40 years.
Wow.
So, and I don't think I'm not worldly. Like,
No.
No. I know that you're not saying that at all. But like,
I mean,
my mom lived in New York, so I spent a lot of time there. But like, I like it here. Like, North Campus, Short North. It's also a very long zip code.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, because you've been here the whole time, you've seen the drastic change that Columbus has been through. I mean, it's different than when we were kids growing up, very much.
Well, and it depends on where you're at, right? It depends on, I mean, Franklinton was not even thought of. I mean, it was just the bottoms. Like, that's what Franklinton was.
Yeah.
And so the extreme amount of development there. I said a lot, I don't think I've said it in a while, but I used to say that the reason that I stayed here is because I had so much human capital built up that like I knew people from high school or from, I mean, that year I was at Otterbein, I was practically the tour guide for other freshmen who were coming in to Westerville.
Yeah.
Didn't know anything about Columbus at large. And I would be like, oh yeah, that's campus.
Yeah.
But campus is actually where I grew up. So
it's true. Campus scared me. I don't know why. When I went to Otterbein, Ohio State was just too big.
Well, it feels like, I think to an outsider, it feels like a big city, right? Because it's at the time the largest undergraduate population in the country.
Yeah.
We're still hovering around there, and yeah, it's a beast.
It is. Where did you get your economics degree then?
So I got my economics degree at Ohio State.
Economics.
How elitist do you want to be?
I don't.
Economics.
Economics.
Yeah. But if you're studying it, it's economics.
Really?
Somebody was telling me the other day that they don't do research, they do research.
Research.
Right. And yeah, but they're getting a doctorate. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Caribbean.
It's just an elevated pinky up in the air way of saying it. And they were being self-deprecating at the time as well. So.
So is that like a pinky up in the air?
Oh yeah, you have to have the pinky up when you're holding your teacup.
I do that so often, in my line of work.
Yeah. So you're at, I think as of right now, you're at 105 of these episodes.
Would you be 100? I don't keep track. Ben, is he 106 now? You're on mute, love.
A few in the can. So I think we're 110-ish. I think is where we are. Yeah.
I'm fine with whatever. I just want to compliment you on being so consistent with it. I host my own podcast, and it is a quote weekly podcast. And I think I almost hit 20 last year.
It's hard though. I mean,
it's a lot.
It is.
And you've got separate work that you have to do, and
I assume this is not your full-time gig, though.
It's kind of mine. I mean, like what we do is we produce things at my company. We produce podcasts and video and stuff.
What's the company?
Boxland Media. So, yeah. So so this is kind of what I do. So, but I mean, we're consistent because kind of what we started off saying. Well, we're going to be as consistent as we can, get something out at least once a week, so we have something out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been. I mean, I think we've missed maybe a couple weeks here and there.
Yeah, a few here and there, but and we've had a few that, like, we had one that went up and that was pulled down like a day later or something like that for
Privacy
dumb
reasons.
But, yeah.
Somebody disclosed a little bit too much.
Well, she was not aware that she was not allowed to disclose, but found out after it was already up that she was not allowed to. So she wasn't.
Do you want to go ahead and re-disclose it now, or?
We'll wait. Honestly, I think that we may have the opportunity in the future to be able to post it. We just have to wait for the larger company that she was working for to say, okay, go ahead and do some advertisement now.
So she was working with a company that just didn't want to be talked about.
Yes.
Got it. I'm always interested in sort of.
They want to be secretive and kind of, I don't know, not secretive. That's not the dramatic, maybe.
They
about it.
Want
So,
to save the excitement. The reveal, yes.
Yeah.
She was working for a certain production that was doing something different, and they're not done with it yet. So she was preemptive, and she said, nobody told me I wasn't allowed to do this. So
I'm always curious about sort of the non-disclosure agreement, intellectual property, embargoed stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was in public relations. I think my first I got this job before I got my so I didn't. It took me 11 or 12 years to get my undergraduate. Totally normal. But I was working for the Wexner Center for the Arts, doing public relations at the time, and embargoing information about, hey, we've got this show coming, or this person is involved in this. It's a tacit agreement, but you expect people to abide by it.
Did you like public relations? I mean, you're so good with people. It makes sense to me.
I did. Yeah, I did. I liked what I was promoting, and that always helps. It wasn't a new product launch or the announcement of adding somebody to a board. I got to write about my stuff was primarily the performing arts stuff. So I got to talk about a dance production coming to town or a theater production, and generating additional media around that, like video and podcasts and stuff like that.
When did you do, so we're getting into the meat of this, because I'm fascinated to know, since you're a fellow podcaster, like, when was your first podcast opportunity? You've been doing this for a while.
I think the first one I ever did was at the Wexner Center. We launched, I think we referred to it as the Wexcast, because you just put Wex in front of everything.
Oh, yes. The Wex toilets, the Wex,
absolutely, all of it.
All of branding is what that is.
It's branding. It's reinforcing your brand.
Right.
That was, I don't know, I probably did like 10 or 12 episodes, and it was interviewing artists that were coming in or people that were related to an exhibition. So we discovered there actually wasn't a whole lot of opportunity around that, just based on our location. The internet was not nearly as stable as it is now. And so there wasn't just a whole lot of opportunity, and the production and the turnaround time had to be so fast, especially for things like a theater performance that's only here for 3 days. And then a couple years later, I started a podcast called 614 Cast with a couple other folks here in town. And I think we did a dozen or so of those. And that was really a function of it being hard to get everybody together. The goal with the two other people, it was going to be interview based, but the goal was to sort of divide the work so that, we're weekly, but I am only accountable to getting one interview done a month, one or two. And then that kind of folded. and then I reached out to Columbus Underground because I wanted to keep doing it, but I also I was a brand new dad with the mother of my child as well. So I'm accountable to them, right? And I want to do this thing and I want to spend time doing it. And I was not told this. I just proactively said it. I need to make a little bit of money to do it. Just validate my time.
Right.
With getting paid.
Absolutely.
So I reached out to Columbus Underground. They didn't have a podcast at the time. They had tried it in the past, but it was, again, it's a lot of work, as Ben knows. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you guys sell into it, you can just help promote the podcast. So I didn't have to worry about sponsorship or anything. And they were very open to sort of whatever I wanted to cover. Wow. And so I've continued doing that for a while.
Like 4 years, haven't you?
I think so. Yeah, about 4 years. That sounds right.
Who was your first guest? Do you remember for that one? Who was your first guest?
For the Confluence cast?
Yeah.
Oh, we did. There was an issue on the ballot, issue 1. Or was it the city council? I think it was. I don't even remember what issue 1 was, but I remember. No, it was city council. We interviewed every city council candidate.
Oh my God.
Or I did.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was awesome. And really, I had done some podcasting before, so I understood the idea of editing. But then took all those interviews, putting them together into a highly produced thing. Frankly, I've never done that much work again on it because I'm like, it's a whole lot easier just to interview one person and cut out the uhs and however heavy-handed you want to be in the editing, and then put your bumper music and your bumpers in, and you're all done. So yeah.
So you had to do all the editing then too.
That was part of the value proposition for Columbus Underground. Is I'll give you this fully produced product, just give me some advertise, and not every episode is sponsored. But give me some advertisers so that I can validate my time.
Absolutely. Who's been your favorite? Because you've had some heavy hitters over the years.
You love all your children, obviously. Some of the good ones, I've had the opportunity to interview Cleve Ricksecker, who's the immediately former executive director of the Downtown Special Improvement District.
Okay.
And while that may sound super boring, he is such a dynamic guy in terms of speaking truth to situations.
Yeah. Huge
advocate for transit. Very willing. In my first interview with him, I've only done 2. He very quickly said, "Do you know why people don't ride the bus?" And I said, "No, why?" And he said, "Because it's for poor Black people."
Huh.
And he, of course, was putting forth a common view. He doesn't believe that. He doesn't believe the bus is for poor Black people, but he recognizes and is willing to say, this is the assumption people have about it. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you what people discovered when they started riding the bus for themselves, whether they had some incentive to do so or whether it was out of necessity. So people like that, Scott Woods, who owns who owns Streetlight Guild, who now has a column in the Columbus Live called The Other Columbus, which is just about racial disparities in the city, is fucking fantastic in terms of the insights he has.
Yeah.
And through sponsorship with GCAC, gotten to interview a lot of great artists, which, as again, I have a background in. And I'm sure I'm forgetting tons of folks who I enjoyed interviewing.
Well, over 4 years. I mean, that's
a
few names to remember. Was there ever a guest that you were nervous or kind of like geeking out to interview, or
Uh,
a little higher stakes than others, I guess?
Two come to mind. There's an amazing choreographer who's actually based in Columbus, BB Miller, who I got to interview for the Columbus Underground podcast. And I totally whiffed it. And I don't have a background in dance, so I don't understand how to talk about it. And while I whiffed the beginning of the interview, basically, like, it was clear to me, it may not be clear in the recording, it was clear to me that I was not asking questions that were framed correctly or made any sense. And when I took my sort of presumption of preparedness out of it and started asking more questions about how should somebody view dance and how is dance created, and just sort of boiled it all the way down. I learned so much and got so much from her. The other person I got to, some people may be familiar with him, but there's a DJ and musician in Columbus who's also based in Columbus, but is internationally known, RJD2, who does a whole lot of commercial work, but I got to interview him again through the GCAC partnership, and super nice guy, super willing to basically talk through the business side of things, like how does this work, like how do you do backing music for a car commercial, like stuff that you just don't think about. And I think the one, in addition to the performance itch that I get to scratch by being performative, I get to I like to figure out, like, how does this work? And that, I've really enjoyed that.
Yours is, and your podcast is a little bit more, I mean, obviously, we have a real strict line of questions that we're following here.
Right. Well, when I prepped for today, I was like, I just got to be ready for a conversation. We're going to talk about anything and everything.
We do. Well, and I mean, then that was kind of our intention from the beginning with this, is like, let's just talk. There's some guests that I need a little bit of background on, mostly just to understand you. I was like, man, we'll just talk. Sorry. But like trying to figure out, when you've done an interview, how much do you have to do? I mean, do you ever go in and feel like completely unprepared to talk to somebody?
I mean, that happened with BB Miller. Totally. And also, she's an award-winning, internationally known choreographer who happens to be based in Columbus. And so when she's told, hey, we want you to do this press interview, it's local, but you're going to be talking about your work, she of course was very gracious and gave her time. But I think there was a little bit more expectation of that I would know something about dance. But in terms of preparing, I do a little bit. I try to make sure that I know a little bit of background. I try to pull out a little bit of facts to demonstrate that I know what I'm talking about. But I let them guide the conversation as much as I can, because otherwise the answers are going to be super short, and they're treating it more like a deposition of I just need to answer the question I'm being asked. Don't go any farther. Because those are the worst interviews, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, luckily our format's different enough that I don't feel that we've had very many times where it's like, man, I don't know what to say next. But I mean, it has happened. So what do you do in those situations?
You move on. Politicians, what's funny is most of the politicians that I've interviewed, frankly, unless we knew each other some other way, we're always very, here's my talking point. Here, I'm not accepting the premise of your question. Here's a different answer. okay, what's your next question?
Okay.
Because I think it's because they're so used to answering interview questions from reporters, or from constituents, frankly, that they view they're not there. My job's to fill the hour.
Mm-hmm.
Their job is to answer the question and move on. But really, it's all about pivoting and just sort of being ready to talk. And I ended up kind of defaulting to a pretty basic set of, because you can ask it to anybody that lives here in Columbus, what's good about Columbus? What are we doing well? What's not so good? What could we do better?
Yeah.
Tends to go towards the end just so that I can get it from everybody. But sometimes I go into that 20 minutes in just to sort of get where I need to go and see what else can be pulled out. Because honestly, I think what's a little interesting is not a whole lot of my episodes are because something is coming up. It's sort of a state of affairs interview. So they don't necessarily want to be there. They don't have something to promote. They're just there because I asked them to be there or because someone asked them to be there. So frankly, the better interviews are always the ones where folks just, where I can pull out what do they want to talk about.
Yeah.
So
do you find too that most guests, after a while, you can get into a place of conversation as opposed to just, I mean, maybe not politicians, because I understand that they're used to the talking points, but I mean, some of the people that you've interviewed where it gets past the place of interview feeling and more just the conversational feel? Do you know those people?
Yeah, I think also when and I don't know when it comes, it's very similar to being on stage, right? Like you come out, you're faking it at first.
No,
and
I'm not. Yes, I am.
You must have warmed up very well.
No,
but you're faking it until you sort of feel that rhythm and you sort of get into it. And as soon as I'm able to get into it, as soon as it's able to be a conversation where I interject that like, oh, here's my opinion on this, or, oh, so does it work this way? And I'm making some comparison. They realize I frankly give a shit.
Re-recording. Here we go. Yeah, he's been having some technical issues, so we'll go from here. We'll just cut out all that part where we talked.
That's why you have Ben, so you can splice it all back together.
I can't lie. Honestly, I saw him disappear, and a part of me just was like, no,
I
can't do this. I can't do this part. No, he's been. I don't know how you do the interviews and the editing and all of that, because I'm lucky to have him where I just basically blather on like an idiot and he takes care of everything else.
Well, first of all, you're not blathering on like an idiot.
Sometimes.
But it is super. We've done a couple of episodes where it's been at the Gateway Film Center, like ahead of the presidential debates, the primary debates actually. Yeah. And I would hire in somebody to record, and those I'm just like, I don't have to worry about my technical device working. I don't have to like look at levels. I'm not worried about anything. And I truly get to just have fun. Yeah. And what's funny is that I've mentioned none of those interviews when you talk about, were you nervous? Were they great? Because they're just, I don't even remember them really. Yeah. Because you're just sort of in the zone.
Right.
Yeah, but like, I'm not tooting my own horn, but just add a little bit of like, I interviewed the governor, I interviewed the former governor, and that was great. He was good. He asked why if Ohio was woke enough to ever elect a Democrat again. People say funny stuff.
Yeah. But it's nice though too, and I mean, you would probably agree in those situations, not to have to think back to every word that you said, to think what happened here. Okay, about 20 minutes, maybe 25 in, this happens. Should we cut this? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think that's what I like about it. Do you listen to yours? Do you listen? I mean, I know when you edit, you have to, but if you're not, like, do you listen to your own podcast?
I don't listen to it after I edit it.
Okay.
I am probably a little more heavy-handed than I need to be in terms of editing.
Okay.
And it's something I say to everybody when I start recording, just, I'm going to edit this for pauses, questions that don't go anywhere, and then the joke I make is that my first priority is to make sure that I sound smart, and then my second priority is to make sure you sound smart.
That's good. That's good.
And frankly, that holds true. I'm a little bit more prone to edit out my or questions that falter a couple of times before I'll edit theirs. So, but I listen to it so far as that. And also, I don't know, maybe I don't even need to do this anymore, because do people really listen to it that way? But I write out a list of, not like time-stamped, but list of subjects we talk about, and put a hyperlink to those things in basically the show notes, the blog entry, when I put it up. I should actually look and see if anybody's clicking on those, because I don't know. Do I need to do that level of work?
Well, kind of like what we talked about, you know, people aren't as concerned, especially now, because everything is audio and everything is screen based, you know, or audio. Like, do people care? I mean, as long as you can hear most of the time, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And do I need, like, the thing is like, I think I may go back to my time in PR, and the basic philosophy in public relations is make it easy for people to write. Like, make it easy for people to cover what you're asking them to cover. Arm them with resources, links, additional audio, images to reuse, whatever you have. And that, for me, is extended a little bit to my audience of, like, if I talk about something, I don't, unless it's a super obscure thing, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about, for example, in this conversation, talking about that Otterbein has one of 10 Bachelor of Fine Arts theater design programs in the country. That's not important right now, but I will probably put it in the links of, like, here's the program we were talking about, or here's information about BB Miller. Because I don't need to talk about the type of choreography she does. You can go look it up if you really care. And if you don't, we'll move on to the next thing.
That's pretty smart, actually, to, like, to put the tags in, because it's never, I guess I don't think about that as often, is that there's pieces and parts that you may be drawn to what this person says about this, but somebody else is drawn to them talking aspect of things. And
well, at the end of the, I don't think it helps. I do a terrible job with adding additional things to my, like, meta RSS feed, stuff like that. But in terms of, if somebody really wants to go down the rabbit hole on my podcast, if they look at, like, the RJD2 interview, they're probably going to see some other musician, they'll see in related links some other musician that I've interviewed, because it's in the related links because of how it was all tagged. But from a discoverability standpoint, I don't think I do a great job of utilizing the technology.
yeah. Do you?
I'll hire an assistant to do that.
Assistant, where are you?
Right.
Yeah, no, I get it. What other podcasts do you listen to?
Well, of course, Speak Easily.
Toss, thank you. Really? I have no idea who listens. I really don't.
You gotta get this. Maybe it's best not to have the metrics of that.
Part of me that doesn't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't ever want people to feel obligated to commit to it. Does that sound weird?
Commit to being commit to listening.
Yeah, and I mean, I have some people that will give feedback. Oh, this guest was amazing, or blah blah blah. But it's like, I just want it to be enjoyable. Not for people to be, because I hate hearing, and I have heard it before. Oh my gosh, I haven't listened to your podcast. I'm so sorry. I'm like, I don't really care. It's fine.
It's just it's a thing that you do.
And maybe it's because I've worked so long in the arts, like you're used to people not coming to performances.
And I do think that I don't know why this just popped into my head. Some people, I don't think you and I fall into this, start a podcast or something like that, and they almost treat it like multi-level marketing, that they expect that because they did it, and we're worse now than we were 10 years ago because of likes and comments and reactions, that people expect, oh, I made this thing. People are my friends, my 1,000 friends on Facebook are going to listen to, consume, watch. And until you've had the experience that you and I have, where it's like, oh, not everybody's going to make time to do that, nor do we expect them to. This might not be their thing. But it's so much, it actually makes it so much better when somebody does highlight it on their own.
Yeah.
Like share it on their own,
Yeah.
even if it's a reshare. But if they say something nice of like, I listened to this and I thought it was super insightful, and frankly, it doesn't tend to be about me. It tends to be about my guest.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question? Because I totally forget what it was.
No, I mean, again, it's like, I think you and I are kind of in the same boat with this, that there is something to be said. And I truly base it back on the fact that when you grow up with theatrical training, it prepares you for things you had no idea were going to come up later in life.
Yeah. Well, and I was talking to Joe Peppercorn actually last week about the Beatles marathon. And he was talking about why he does the Beatles marathon and like how it evolved and all that. And he got down to a really good point. You don't follow the Enneagram, right? Or do you?
People are yelling at me not to do it, which clearly tells you what my number is. It's a 7. I don't get it, but I'll get there someday. I think I told a friend, like, could somebody just tell me what number I am? And they're like, that clearly states what you are.
Well, what's funny is that I know 1/7 very well, and she is the person who is most attached to the Enneagram in terms of using it to guide her in sort of like accepting weaknesses and virtues, and using it basically as an explainer. Anyway, Joe was talking about sort of just his need for validation. And I was like, well, I'm an Enneagram 3. Like, I know that I need and it goes back to love language and personality. It goes into everything. But my love language is words of affirmation. And so part of what I'm doing, I'm not making a lot of money at all doing this. And in fact, if, I met somebody at like a dinner party and they said, what do you do? The first 3 things I would probably say is like, oh, I do startup and corporate consulting. I'm a dad, and I'm very pro Columbus. Like, I don't think that the podcast would be one of the first 3 things I say.
That's interesting.
And I really just do it because I like doing it. I think Columbus is important, and I want to give a voice to more people. So, but yeah, it is the validation.
No, absolutely. It's
and the acceptance of not getting it. To your point.
Well, that's true. That's true. Do you do like the Myers-Briggs? Have you done those before?
I have not. I've been told I have what my 4-letter type is, but I don't. That one I don't. I probably subscribe to my astrological sign a little bit more than that.
What are you? What's your sign? That sounds.
I'm a Libra.
You're a Libra. What does that mean?
To me, it means I'm basically the symbol, balance, the ability to see both sides of the coin, and that I know for me, if I'm an extreme in one thing at any given time, undoubtedly I'm going to be an extreme in another thing. I remember, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but listening to your podcast, I feel totally free to just go off on tangents. I remember I was probably in high school, maybe a sophomore, and I had just gotten like a really great role, and I think I won concert tickets on the radio, and I was having a fucking great day. And I immediately was like, something terrible is going to happen to one of my family members. Like things are so extreme in the good right now that something bad is going to happen.
It is?
That is not a fear that has stayed with me. Therapy has been very helpful. But
that's where your mind goes.
That's where my mind goes, is like, this is good. Like if I cook dinner, I'm undoubtedly going to mess up one of the 3 dishes. And, you know, I just hope it's the broccoli and not the chicken.
That's true. Broccoli is a little bit easier to throw away.
Easier to mess up, and it's easier for my daughter to ignore.
Does she like broccoli? I gotta know.
She does. Yeah, she does. It's one of the vegetables I keep in stock all the time. Yeah.
Is she picky?
I've been told I'm not supposed to bring this up to her, but like well, the thing I'm not supposed to bring up, she doesn't like cake.
Okay.
And I was concerned.
So we're that.
And I'm not supposed to bring it up to her because the idea of not liking cake it's not normal.
Right.
And so she perceives it as something might be wrong with her if she doesn't like cake. She's picky with like new things that she's never had, but as soon as you convince her to eat it the first time, she tends to be fine.
How old is she now?
She's 5. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like, at least at this point, that she's probably on a good track for continuing.
She's very good. I'm also very bad at introducing new things to her. Because I'm the kind of guy who, if it was socially acceptable to wear not the same article of clothing, not the same physical article, but the same clothes every day, I would.
What would you wear every day?
I would wear a button-up shirt, a blazer, and a pair of skinny jeans every day.
What shoes?
Probably Chuck Taylor's, but I've slowly been migrating into like low-top street shoes.
What are low-top street shoes? Like, sorry.
Like, it's okay.
Oh, those are sweet. I like those.
Just like tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Something where you can see the socks and
All
a little bit more support.
Are you a sock person? Like,
I am now.
on socks?
Yeah.
Those seem
I think I've gotten rid of all my black socks
okay.
because
But
it was just that.
I feel like the sock thing is like a new trend. Would you agree? I mean, it seems like within the last 5 years, a lot more people have been doing fun socks.
Yeah, and I think it's a marketing thing a little bit. I mean, it inspired me a little. I was before in the before times. I was
Days of yonder. Yes.
Yes, I was thinking about, and maybe I'll go back to it when people go into the office again. But I was thinking about starting a pocket square company. Just like we would manufacture custom it'd basically be a pocket square subscription service.
Okay, I feel really stupid here. What is a pocket square? Like a handkerchief?
Oh, yeah, it's a handkerchief that you put in the.
Gotcha. I thought that's what it was, but then I also thought, I mean, I don't wear them, so.
You've seen it. You put it in the front pocket of your blazer or jacket.
The handkerchief you're not allowed to actually use as a handkerchief. You shouldn't use as a handkerchief.
So what do you use a pocket square for? Is it just fashion?
It's an adornment.
Yes.
Is it like a
It's like a what?
When's the Dickie gonna make a comeback? That's what I want to know.
The Nicky?
Dickie?
Oh, the faux front shirt?
Yeah.
Don't women still have that?
I've never had one. I don't know.
I think if you go to like Ann Taylor or Dress Barn, maybe, they will have something like a Dickie. Yes.
Anyway.
Cheap, right? I mean, they can't be that expensive. It's like a tenth of a shirt.
I just don't see the point.
True.
I mean, like, if you're gonna go for the turtleneck, that's for warmth, right? I mean, it sort of just defeats the entire purpose for me, unless you're going for Eddie from Christmas Vacation. But I don't get the Dickie. Anyway, I digress. Back to the pocket square. You were gonna start a whole.
So because this was off of your decorative sock thing, I think that people in the last 5 years, it's not just the socks. It's sort of like everybody is pretty much, if you're wearing all pretty much the same jeans, or you're wearing all pretty much, if you're a woman, the same quote unquote dress yoga pant, or whatever your like uniform is, right? I am known as the guy who wears button-ups and blazers and jeans.
Yeah.
If you want to spice that up a little bit, it goes to socks, it goes to underwear, it goes to lapel pin, pocket square, Warby Parker, it goes to glass, like low cost conversation pieces.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what is going on with the socks.
Okay. I like that. Here's a glasses question for you. Do you have numerous pairs of glasses, or do you just use?
I always have one go-to.
Okay.
And then I also keep, it wasn't until probably last year that I got my first pair of prescription sunglasses. It just felt like such a extravagance that I would do that I would have a pair of glasses that was like just for being outside. But yeah, I've got like these, these are my Gordon Gee glasses. And then I've got a pair of Malcolm X glasses. And I've probably got a terrible pair of like black heavy frames that I used to wear all the time that I've just retired. Yeah. I'm thankful that my prescription doesn't, once you get old, things stop changing. It's like you don't have to, when I say old, I don't mean that old, but basically when you stop growing, it's like, oh, I buy new shoes when they wear out, not when I grow out of them.
Here's an interesting piece though, because I just went to the eye doctor and yelled at him for aging me, because he said you're right on track, because about 42, 43, the need for bifocals comes. I'm like, thanks. And also your prescription gets declined, like it has to go down. So I don't see well anyway. For negative 4.25, negative 2.25, but it was negative 4.5, negative 2.5. So he brought it down. But he said, basically, your eyes are aging, so the strain isn't as necessary. I said, can we please stop saying aging? And just call it degeneration, something that's not, hey, you're getting old, lady, and that's what's happening.
Doesn't that infer that you're not using your eyes as much? Or, okay.
Yeah, maybe I just don't. I don't observe things anymore. I've stopped looking at things. I stopped watching my children.
I just don't care.
Just don't.
So my eyes have relaxed.
Don't care what's out there. Shut the curtains. Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Possible.
Because you're approaching 40. You're not quite there yet, right?
I'm not quite there. I'm working through my 40 before 40 list right now.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to share all of them. What's on the list?
So I did this 10 years ago. I did a 30 before 30 list. Wow. And it was things like buy a car.
Okay.
I didn't have a car at the time. I just didn't need one. And I thought I wanted to go to auctioneer school to become an auctioneer.
Okay.
State of Ohio is this may be the same way in other states, but it seems to me it's quite onerous to become an auctioneer.
Okay.
However, after I set that goal, our governor at the time, Governor Strickland, relaxed that you didn't have to go to auctioneer school if you were just doing charitable auctions.
Okay.
So I didn't do that. And what were the other things? I wanted to become a notary public, stuff like things like that. I accomplished probably 20 of those 30.
That's amazing.
So this year, and I set it on my birthday. Yeah. And some of these I will tell you, some of these I won't. But the ones I do tell you, I only tell you to hold myself accountable.
Okay, I'm there.
I don't read I don't read books a whole lot. So I said I'm going to read 12 books, which felt like what I try to do is set goals that are attainable. So I'm going to read 12 books. Outlined a couple of road trips that I wanted to take, specifically like with my brother and my best friend. I wanted to do a journaling habit for Piper, for my daughter. Basically like talking about like, here's where you're at in your life and here's what's going on in the world around you, because you're not going to remember this and it's crazy. And what are some other things? So the big one that I'm actually nervous about telling you, I'm going to buy a house.
Okay.
Which will be my first home that I've owned. Hold on, I've got it right here.
Oh God.
I keep it just pulled up on my computer at any given time.
That's a big deal, though.
Yeah, well, I've for a long time been very, I've basically just been an independent contractor since I left the Wexner Center 10 years ago. So buying a house is not the easiest thing in the world to do. But I think I can do it. I'm pretty sure.
Are you going to stay in the same zip code?
No, I don't think I can afford it.
Okay.
I don't think I can afford it unless I go back up to North Campus, which I kind of don't want to do.
Westerville's lovely. You can come up there with us.
It's kind of expensive, though.
Well, we don't live in the real Westerville, per se.
Oh, you live in the school district. That's the way to go.
Fake
Start a college fund for my daughter, and like no commitment to like how much it's going to be. Take a golf class.
Okay.
I put it on there again. Become a notary public.
Okay.
Get a couple more tattoos. Wine class, write a living will. Stuff like that. It's kind of all over the map.
How do you feel? Because I know there's some list people that freak out if their list does not get accomplished. Like, how do you feel if these things don't happen?
That's a good question. So I did a 30 before 30.
Yeah.
And I have no shame in the fact that I only accomplished like 20 of them. I would really like to be able to get this one done.
Okay.
And like, some of them are very open right now still. Like one of them just says volunteer ?
Well, there's not a lot of place for that right now, but.
Well, and also I could just sort of fill that in afterwards and be like, I did this for free.
You can call this a volunteer opportunity.
I could.
Yeah.
I could. If I will mark that down as like, could be that.
And I will sign off for.
Oh, thank you very much.
I mean, if that means anything.
Very much. But like, just, stuff like that.
I applaud you for that. I am not a list person. I'm not a goal-oriented person. I think because I'm more concerned that I'm not going to achieve it. And I don't want to live with that disappointment. I feel like this could go into a whole like 4-hour-long counseling session, so we won't. But I applaud you for going forward with it. Even, I mean, you've done the 20 before 30 essentially, but.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, frankly, it's something that at least right now, I've gone back to not going into my office.
Yeah.
It's something where it's like, I've got 2 hours right now that normally I would have been spending commuting or something, that like, hey, maybe I can knock more of that book off the list. Or how about I research, how do I get a will? How much is that going to cost me? Or what do I need to do to start that process?
And I'm the kind of person that it would be, if my birthday is August 12th, I'd probably start on August 10th and look through the list and realize I'd done nothing. So I would go out and find somebody named Will and check it off and be like, well, I found a notary public, no, to Republic, check done. Like I wouldn't Terrible. And I'm the kid that, like, when you had summer reading projects, that was a nightmare. Sometime 3 weeks before it was due, that I would, like the actor's nightmare, but it was in school.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you there about like summer readings. Like, I think I just clenched up a little bit when you said summer reading. But yeah, it's, I won't do some of it. And like one of them is host a poker night, and maybe I'll trade that out for a dinner party. It's just like, oh, these are goals.
Yeah.
They don't have to be hit. They're not deadlines.
That's awesome.
They're just goals.
That's awesome. No, I like that. That makes me feel better about not accomplishing anything that I've ever had on a goal list.
Just brain dump. It feels good.
I should write them down. You've encouraged me to do that. So
good.
Where can we find your podcasts?
You can find the Confluence Cast at theconfluencecast.com. You can also just go to confluencecast.com and it'll redirect you. That was a bad thing I did. Yeah.
And when do your episodes drop typically?
Any time during the week. I don't have a set schedule for that. It's not, frankly, the biggest thing is it's not in my workflow. Yeah. And it's all about when do I get sponsors that I have to fulfill, and when do I line up interviews that I want to do. So, but I encourage you to listen. I think it's pretty good.
Yes, I do. I like your podcast. I love the fact of how we have, I mean, obviously we've got our mutual friends that we know through college, but hearing people like my friend Dino, it's like, oh, I loved him. He's awesome. Just to hear how much of an influence you have been over the podcasting, which has grown so much in the last couple of years. So,
well, and that, I think it's almost like, it's very similar. I don't know if I'm going over on time, but it feels very similar to some other stuff I've done, in that I do it because it didn't exist. Like, there wasn't a Columbus-centric podcast. And now, and shortly after I started doing it, the Chamber of Commerce started doing its own podcast. I don't know if that still exists. And there's like 3 different entrepreneurial podcasts now. And that's partly, I'll totally admit, by virtue of the podcasting space in general. But like I founded, this is going to be me tooting my own horn. I founded my first nonprofit when I was 18. It was right after I left Otterbein, I think.
Wow.
Excuse me. We incorporated it on my 21st birthday.
Okay.
It all, 18, 21. But it,
years, a lot of alcohol involved. It's fine.
And it was meant to expose people to outsider, quote unquote, artists, visual artists, by way of throwing parties with bands. Because there were not music and art events in Columbus at the time. Yeah. And when people started seeing it, being like, oh, we could do it that way, our benefit event could have, our arts organization could have an event that had live music that doesn't deteriorate the value of the visual art. We stopped doing it because I was like, I don't need, somebody else is doing this and they're doing it better at this point.
Yeah.
I don't need to be the best at it. I was doing it because I didn't see it.
Yeah.
And I feel frankly the same way about podcasting. I'll keep doing it, but I don't keep as rigorous a schedule because people like you, people like Dino, again, the entrepreneurial field in Columbus, a whole lot of we haven't mentioned it. Like, I started the Columbus Podcast Festival almost to sort of join those folks together, so that people could see what other people were doing, because very similar to putting out a podcast, not knowing what your listener base is. We're working in silos. Even if there wasn't a pandemic going on, when you put something on the internet, it's just on the internet, and the guy 2 apartments down might be doing exactly the same thing. Huge opportunity to cross-pollinate audiences. And I'm sorry, can't believe I didn't name Ohio versus the World,
Yeah.
Alex Hasey's podcast. To compare notes, cross-pollinate audiences, and sort of, rising tide helps all boats. And
No,
I don't need to be the best at it. I just wanted to bring it to the fore.
I loved, and I'm sad that it didn't happen this year, but doing the podcast festival, I went, we had just started, so we weren't really a part of anything, but just going and chatting about our podcast to a couple of other people, it was like, here's my card. I'd love for you to come on. I mean, it was such
you saw the awards, not even the full festival, right?
Yeah, I just saw the award ceremony.
Well, we didn't do the full thing that year.
Yeah.
Because that's we can talk about volunteerism, actually, and like board structures, holding people accountable and all that another time.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other bag of stuff.
Okay, well, you just said it then. You have to come on again. So you're now volunteering for 2 hours.
Uh-huh.
I'll sign off.
Sure.
Okay.
Happy to impart my little bit of knowledge that I have.
Honestly, Tim, I would love to have you come on again and do a live session, because the number of people, and Ben will probably attest to this, the number of people that we hear that say like, oh, I'd love to start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That don't ever end up doing it because they don't really know what they're doing, or they come like, I can't help you. I've
probably done like half a dozen, like Westerville Library had me up there, like, how do you start a podcast? And like, it's a people are super interesting as to like why and like what do I need, and like the thing is, you only need a phone. Like, at the end of the day, if you want to just put something out, and we can talk about, we'll put a pin in it, but I just want you to remember the idea. So my philosophy around a lot of things, and I think I'm going to write a book about it. I'm not putting it on my list, my 40 before 40 list.
That's 50.
It is, podcasting is like so many other things, and a whole lot of things in your life are this way, that you can have as many cats as you want, but you have to feed every single one of them.
Interesting.
And it's sort of, and I feel that way about the podcast, where I'm like, I got to do at least one so that like it doesn't like completely fall off, or I just need to stop doing it.
Mm-hmm. Get rid of that.
And what's that?
Get rid of that cat.
You got to get rid of the cat. And frankly, the philosophy, I'm going to add this as a chapter. Don't kill the cat. Give it to somebody.
Okay.
Don't just stop feeding it.
Yeah.
Don't, like, as long as, like with the nonprofit I was talking about, somebody else took that cat and they and they grew it into a lion. Let's extend that metaphor way too far. But that is something I'd be interested in talking about too, because that's the other part of my podcast, is I don't really talk about myself.
Well, good. We just need to do this again then.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah, let's do a live. Let's plan a live. And
so what does that mean?
Like a Facebook Live where people can ask questions during and get answers.
Oh, okay.
He seems really interested.
Yeah.
No, I'll do it.
I know you will. I'll make you do it.
Cool.
Well, my gosh, thank you so much. I mean, yeah, we didn't go down any crazy rabbit holes besides the toilet paper thing, but
yeah, crazy. Let's start and end on just stress poops.
Stress poops. Stress poops, ladies and gentlemen. Stress poops.
Book ended by stress poops.
Sounds like a day in quarantine, doesn't it, ladies?
Indeed. Thank you guys both, Krista,
Thank you
very much.
And if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, iTunes, SoundCloud, all those things, YouTube, just do all those lovely things. Check out the Confluence Cast, and thanks for listening. Right. Thanks again.
See you guys.
Bye. Good to see you.
Boxland Media. Think big.